Welcome back, everyone, to Stay in Your Lane. I'm your host today, John Mahle. Got two special guests, two new to our podcast, so I want everybody to take a moment. We got Jami Jones, managing editor of LandLine magazine, with us. Jami, if you want to say hi.
Hey there, everybody. Happy to be on the show.
All right, thanks for being with us. Got Jimmy Mack, host of RadioNemo. Thank you for coming on, Jimmy. Jimmy was in the morning slot previously on Road Dog Radio. Now you guys are on Dave Nemo Radio, has its own.
Yeah, we're RadioNemo.com. You can find us on Odyssey. You can find us on iHeart. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us everywhere, and we're going to continue expanding platforms until there are no more platforms to expand to. You can actually find us, here's the punchline, on Pandora and type in Road Gang Radio or Nemo Nation, even on the Sirius XM app, we're there. So we're everywhere.
What I want to talk about today is a subject that I think it's important for everybody to understand. With this administration, the first step we saw English language proficiency and enforcement of that, and it seems that enforcement is here, from what we're seeing and hearing. Are you guys seeing the same things?
Well, enforcement was due to kick off on June 26th, and it's really important to kind of circle back to the whole point of why this regulation is on the books. It's been there since the 30s. It's 100% a safety issue. It's not in any way trying to be predatory to any particular group, but when you have crashes where somebody's going down a mountain in Colorado and doesn't understand what a runaway ramp sign is saying to them, and they've got no brakes, that's a safety issue. So we're going to start seeing enforcement roll out on this, and it's going to be rough because there's not a really clean way to do it necessarily. But these motor carriers who are putting these individuals in an unsafe situation are going to have to deal with it. That their driver's going to be put out of service on the side of the road, and they're going to send somebody to go get the driver and the load.
Yep. Jimmy, what do you see?
Well, the big thing I think everybody's waiting to see, and this has been an ongoing problem when it comes to the immigration issue, when it comes to English speaking proficiency issue, is where do the teeth bite? If it's simply biting at people who can't master the King's English, you're not going to see a lot of changes. They'll just keep on kind of playing, free card money. If, in fact, when this starts to go down, if the companies, if the carriers start getting penalized and start bearing the
Feeling it?
real bite, if they really feel it, then they can make a difference. And I want to kind of echo what Jami said too. We had the head of the Punjabi Association come on our show on Nemo Nation. They're 100% behind this. There are a lot of immigrant communities in trucking who are absolutely behind this, and they understand that the rules of the game are, in order to have safe highways, you need to have people literally understanding. A good point was made to me. Look, if you've got a 5-second decision to make and you don't know the King's English or you don't recognize a sign, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
No, I agree 100%. That's not a political perspective. That's a public safety perspective. And
100%. And what's really interesting to me, one of the first moves that FMCSA did after the announcement by Sean Duffy that they were going to be, making sure that enforcement of the regulation does happen, is they put out guidance on it. And, you always kind of want to see what the guidance says because even though it's not a regulation, it carries the weight of a regulation. This is where the rubber meets the road kind of thing. And FMCSA went straight at the motor carriers who hire these individuals who are not proficient in English and put the onus back on them to make sure that they're putting well qualified drivers behind the wheel and not putting them in an unsafe situation. So I thought that was a pretty bold move. And we've seen CVSA talk about, that they would like to see it happen at the training level. I mean, everybody, this is a training issue as much as anything. And that's because it is a safety issue. So it's been interesting to watch how they're going to move forward on enforcing this existing regulation.
I
well,
do
you
like that, by the way, John. I like the fact that they've actually issued like how they want this handled, that two-step process, because part of the reason why it stopped happening, one of the reasons, if you talk to
Mhm.
CVSA insiders, was that certain states were having a real great time putting people in trick bag situations and declaring them out of service, and it was so spotty in how it was enforced.
Yeah, no
They
consistency.
the guidelines here suggest a certain level of consistency, and I'm interested to see when, in fact, somebody challenges this. I don't mean legally in the courts, but when somebody gets put out of service who actually can speak the King's English, once again, there's got to be a bite in that direction too, because we got to make sure that we're not talking about, I don't like your accent, you're out of service. It's the one thing, the baby with the bathwater scenario that happened in 2016. That's right, Jamie. That's when they kind of phased it out, was right around 2016. And then you saw that explosion of just the problem started at that point. But can they, in fact, enforce this consistently? If they can do that, it solves the problem.
Well, I think this, Jamie, you brought up a key reason why we're sitting down here talking about this. Sean Duffy, Transportation Secretary. He's a pit bull.
No, he is.
He's a pit bull. He's going to bring about change. Jimmy, we talked about it in the past. This administration's not afraid to break a few eggs making the omelet. And we're all seeing that. And it's almost to the point that, they'll ask for forgiveness if it impacts in a negative way. But you talk about, Sean Duffy stated when he was talking about New York's subway system last week, stupid liberals with stupid policies are why the subway system's not safe. And then the administration backed him and said maybe we need to come in and clean up, the federal government needs to come in and clean up the subway system in New York so that people can use it and it's safe. So you see the listing of what his agenda is online. When you go to the website, you can see it. You see that it's about safe roads, America First policy from this administration, border security, fentanyl and drugs crossing our borders, national security, and public safety. So when you have all of these different pieces that are all part of our safe roads and our safe country perspective, it's not too difficult to understand that change is coming. We're really trying to understand at what level of impact is there going to be. I saw over the weekend, watching news, flipping channels, there were some people that stated that America was addicted to cheap labor.
Let me take a step back here real quick, because I want to talk about the comments about New York and the overall kind of policy goal here. I'm going to talk about this from a political standpoint a little bit. And when I say political, I don't mean taking sides. I mean just kind of an analysis that there are two purposes. One, they actually believe in the policy. They're putting these policies in place because they believe in it. Despite a little bit of an uptick last week during the 4th of July is bound to happen, this is still a really tough market for truckers. This is a really tough market for truckers.
Absolutely.
And the foundation of this administration's support, meaning its actual support as opposed to outliers, swing voters, they come and they go. But you got to keep your base foundation. And you can make a case, I don't know if Jamie would agree with me on this, that a great deal of the people who drive trucks for a living are the foundation of the administration's political base. In many ways, a lot of them are Generation Xers and Gen Jonesers. And a lot of this is an attempt to recapture the past, to make them think about the good old days. And if you look at it, the idea of taking a head-on approach to a New York ridden with crime, that we're going to take on the rotten liberals in New York and kind of stick it to them. And we're going to get these, the foreigners who are actually, basically not speaking the King's English and get them off the road. And we're going to target people from Mexico who are driving cabotage, which is a real problem. Yeah. We're going to get them too. We're going to start targeting all these people in all these scenarios. In many ways, when the economy at the trucking level isn't humming, there are steps that they can take, I think, to a large degree that says, we care about you. They can't improve the rates. Nothing the administration can do, any administration can do to stop one crunch or another. You can't do it. I mean, people act like there's no magic wand. But what you can do is you can enact policies that tell your political base you care about them. And I think in some ways, this is a direct way of reminding the people he's dancing with who brung him. It's one of the places where he's dancing with who brung him. And that's a big deal.
No, thank you for that. And I think that's an important thing to point out. Thank you. Jami, what's your perspective? Because, we all grew up, I would say, similar generationally, right?
Sure.
Most of the time, you didn't have to have everything locked up. Now we're in a different time. The community involvement, community safety isn't there in most big cities in the United States. So we've lost some things, but our roads aren't safe from a lot of perspectives. So with them going after the non-domiciled visa or driver CDL drivers, non-domiciled CDL drivers, with them then taking a focus on that and looking at all states, because we've all seen the videos online of some of the states in this country providing interpreters to drivers to get them through CDL training, to get them a license and come here. So the focus is going to be on removing that from a safety perspective. But I think at some level, we're always going to benefit. This country's always benefited and will always benefit from those that do it the right way, that come in here legally and abide by the laws and the rules, etc. And they're not the unsafe part of the equation.
Right. Just one thing on the CDL testing. FMCSA does allow for the written exam to be given in languages other than English, and that is something that's being pushed back on. So that's why the translators during training and stuff do exist. Now, how they're going to address that, are they going to address it? That remains to be seen. Right now, the skills test is required to be given in English only. So you have to be able, supposedly, to walk around the truck, do your pre-trip, do everything on that skills test, and communicate with the tester in English. We see CDL fraud all the time, and it's never going to go away. You can't legislate to the lowest common denominator. Criminals are going to find a way. They always do. But what we need to do is just embrace the fact that there is some shoring up that's, inevitably going to happen. We did get a little bit of a wrinkle thrown at us late last week when you mentioned Sean Duffy. He actually has accepted the position for interim NASA administrator.
Right.
So, here we had this champion that went down to Austin and had the English language proficiency press conference. He came out with the pro trucker package. Let's just hope that that vibe at the DOT, that he leaves a legacy there that they can carry forward on these things that do improve safety, because it really is. We do live in a very different time. Cargo theft is incredibly high. It's become more and more sophisticated, if you will, using technology and AI. It's not your cousin from Nigeria anymore and a fake email that's clearly a scam. I mean, this stuff's being written by AI now, and it looks like a legitimate, paperwork and stuff. So it's getting
it's
tougher
brutal
to face.
It's brutal, Jamie. It's like you sit there and it's like, the people who actually know how to really look at this stuff can tell, but a lot of people who are working quickly. Jamie brings up a really good point too, and I'm actually might get you some comments about this. I would argue that cities are safe, that the real issue these days is the ex-urban areas. That there's a lot. I mean, like I said, of course, the administration wants to paint these urban hellholes, but I would actually argue that the cities themselves, where the safety is, the fear right now is that the exurbs and the suburbs. And you could make an argument saying that with the flight inward, it really has kind of caused some issues. But you can make the argument saying that the real fear and the reason why they're doing a lot of this stuff is the biggest problem that's happening is that there's a lot of fraud out there. There's a lot of trucking fraud, and that's not happening on the docks of like New York City. It's happening in the sticks. And it's a dangerous place to be out there. You can make that argument, and there's an issue, and they're dealing with it. I mean, that you can say that part of it. I mean, part of those bad hombres the president talked about so many years ago. That's a country problem. That's an ex-urban problem. I also wanted to kind of agree with you on something, John, that most Americans, I think, fall into the category of strong wall, big door when it comes to immigration. I think that's where most Americans fall, that they want a very strong wall, but they want to make sure that the door is big enough for the people who want to play by the rules can get through efficiently.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.